Do you think right now, prior to seeing this matchup this week against the Dodgers, that the Phillies will beat the Dodgers in a postseason series?
I'd feel better about it in a 7-game series than I would a 5-game series, in all honesty. And I think part of me believes that that's why the Phillies are hell-bent on catching the Brewers. I think the Phillies look at it and say, we look around the National League and we think we are better than every team except the Dodgers, who we think we're on par with. And in that case, we'd rather play that team over a 7-game series and give us a little bit of a little bit of a leeway in case things go sideways in a game or whatever. So you just have a little more wiggle room. I think that that's why they want to be the one. I think that they look at it and say, we can beat the Cubs. We can beat the Padres. Yeah, neither one is going to be easy.
Right.
But we can beat those teams in a 5-game series. We actually like our matchups against those teams in a 5-game series. I don't particularly think they prefer the Dodgers in 5. I think they would rather play the Dodgers in 7.
Are we, are the Dodgers praying to God that the Mets hang on to the 6 seed? Like, is that, if you're a Dodgers fan right now, like that's, I think, the other thing. We're talking about the Phillies and where they're at. The National League wildcard race is ultra compelling for that final spot. And I mean, the Cubs are in, they're solid. The Padres are solid. They're in. These teams are pretty much locked into the 4 and 5 seeds, right? Like, I'm looking at this correctly. There's no world where the Cubs and Padres aren't the 4 and 5 seeds.
Yeah, I mean, the Padres technically, it depends. The Phillies can help the Padres big time here this week. I mean,
the Padres' path to not being the 5 seed would be to win the division. Yes,
win the division, right? I mean, they could still technically catch the Dodgers with a little help. So, I mean, but I think you're pretty much looking at them being.
And then let me ask you this. I asked you, do you think that the Phillies would beat the Dodgers in a postseason series? Who concerns you more? If you're saying the Phillies could do the Padres a favor, would the Phillies be doing the Phillies a favor by knocking LA out of the West and bringing the Padres in as the likely opponent in that second round?
The Padres are really inconsistent for whatever reason. They don't have the starting pitching. Their starting pitching's not good, really good bullpen. Their lineup should be better than it is. They don't have starting pitching. And that's why I like the matchup against either the Cubs or the Padres, because neither team has great starting pitching. Mm-hmm. And I think that the Phillies would prefer that in a shorter series. You'd rather face a team that doesn't have good pitching. Whereas the Dodgers, they know how to play in this time of year. Like we saw it last year. They bullpenned the hell out of it to a championship, right? And then won the World Series last year. Like, I think you would rather play them in a longer series because you could wear down that bullpen a little bit more.
I'll tell you what, I mean, you look at the schedule and the Mets are off today, but the Padres Mets this week in New York, there is a lot up in the air in terms of pairings and seedings. And the Mets 2-8 now in their last 10. They salvaged one yesterday late. They are right there. I mean, the Giants really missed an opportunity. They win 2 out of 3 this weekend against the Dodgers instead of lose 2 out of 3. You're talking about them being a half game out, as we discuss right now. I mean, still only a game and a half. Yeah. That's not insurmountable, but this time of year, games are shortening now. The difference is pretty substantial. But Padres Mets is tough, man. And the Padres have a lot to play for, and they sweep or take 2 out of 3 against the Mets this week. Let's see who the Giants have. What's their?
They got to play the Dodgers again. Later in the
Dodgers
week
again. And prior to that, they're at Arizona, so not an easy road for them either. And
that's
obviously in it as well.
That's an elimination series in a lot of ways. The Giants, Diamondbacks, whoever wins that series is knocking the other team out. They're both.
It almost feels like if one of those teams is able to sweep that series, if one of those teams could sweep that series, I actually think at that point they probably have the inside track to get past the Mets.
Well, once again, and I said this before, why I think the Giants are the Phillies' best friend right now. And obviously they played the Dodgers. They got 1 this weekend. Rather, they got 2. And then they got to play the Diamondbacks, who the Phillies also still have to play. So if you're the Phillies and you want to catch the Brewers, you don't want the Diamondbacks to matter for that series this weekend. You want them to be get their doors blown off by the Giants, and okay, you're out of the race now. These games don't matter for you, and so now the Phillies can go in there and continue to try, and you have 3 straight series against teams that are out of the playoff race as opposed to just 2. So yeah, I mean, and then the Giants play the Dodgers again. The Mets have the easiest schedule of those teams. There's no question, even and that includes playing the Padres, and then got to go to Chicago and play the Cubs next. Right, they play the Cubs next week on the road, I believe it is. But even with those games, I think that the Mets have the easier schedule out of everybody. But they're the Mets, man. Like, that bullpen is a disaster.